Three spine-chilling tales from cursed towns, terrifying secrets exposed in hidden places. Sarah stood in front of the mirror, a single mom clad in the guise of a Halloween witch, painted on a smile as bright as the moon hanging high above Maplewood. She had to be strong for Tommy, her 7-year-old who was bursting with energy and excitement for the neighborhood Halloween party. The town always seemed perfect, with its friendly faces and warm smiles. But as dusk edged closer, an unsettling feeling began to creep into her bones. The town had secrets, dark, lingering whispers that snaked through the autumn air. "Mom, can we go now?" Tommy tugged at her sleeve, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. She nodded, swallowing the knot of apprehension that began to form inside her. Halloween was a time for fun, right? The tight-knit community wouldn't let any harm come to them, not in Maplewood. Yet, as they ventured out, a sharp wind cut through the brisk October air, snatching the bright leaves off trees and sending them swirling like lost souls in the night. As they trekked through the quiet streets, a chill settled over Sarah's heart. Less laughter echoed in the distance, replaced by an eerie silence that sank deeper into her chest. "Stay close to me, Tommy," she instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. The neighborhood had become a maze of shadows, and she could swear she caught hushed voices drifting from the corners. "It's just the wind," she reassured herself, forcing a smile, but the unease clung to her like a dark shroud. Then something shifted, like an unseen weight pressing down, chilling the air. Moments melted away in blurs of laughter and chatter until one heartbeat stood starkly still. Tommy hadn't returned home. Panic struck hard and fast. Each tick of the clock rang louder in her ears. Where could he be? She thought, voice trembling as she stepped outside, tightening her grip on her phone. The once reassuring streetlights now felt like cold sentinels, illuminating the path she trod with clumsy dread. "Tommy," she called, her voice echoing against the hushed facades of neighbors' homes she once thought were safe. As she approached the old sycamore tree, the square's gathering point, she noticed a group of huddled figures, their hushed conversations crawling with urgency. She heard snippets of chilling stories, menacing stories. Children had gone missing in the night, one after another, their faces soon forgotten, yet their absence heavy in the air. The sheriff's name fell from lips like a prayer, yet it carried a different weight now. No, she thought, dread pooling in her gut. The trusted figure, backlit by the dim glow of the lantern light, didn't look so inviting anymore. His smile was an enigma, a thin veil that shrouded the truth, as fear gnawed at her instincts. "Find Tommy, find the truth," whispered a voice, echoing her own desperation. She had to discover what lay hidden beneath the glossy surface of Maplewood. Against the backdrop of laughter that now sounded hollow, she found herself torn between facing the looming threat in the darkness or retreating into ignorance. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With dread coiling in her chest, she quickened her pace toward the abandoned park, long talked about as the playground for the lost. What if Kami was drawn to that cursed place? The flickering shadows beckoned her as she drew closer. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back. But there, just beyond the gnarled trees, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Was it Tommy's laughter or something more sinister hidden under the veil of night? The moon hung high, casting an eerie glow over the cobblestone paths leading her deeper into dread. She had to know. She was running out of time, both for her son and the truth. As her heart raced, she faced a chilling realization.
In a town that thrived on trust, the scariest monsters wore familiar faces. The park loomed as a forgotten relic, overgrown and dark, whispering secrets into the wind. Each step sent cracked gravel crunching beneath her feet, echoing unnaturally through the hollow silence. Sarah fought down the rising bile in her throat. Tommy had always been drawn to adventure, but he didn't know these shadows like she did. "Tommy!" she shouted again, desperation clawing at her lungs. The empty swing swayed gently, creaking like old bones, and for a moment she could almost hear his giggles dancing in the breeze. But that sound was an illusion, an echo of innocence swallowed whole by the darkness. As she approached the heart of the park, the trees loomed larger, twisting into grotesque shapes against the night sky. A distant flicker of light broke the oppressive darkness, almost beckoning her closer. Was it hope, or something waiting, something hungry? With a trembling hand, she pushed aside low branches, their fingers brushing against her, cold as the grave. "Sarah!" A voice, familiar yet saturated with dread. She turned sharply, the nerves in her body screaming. It was Claire, her neighbor, panting heavily, a wild look in her eyes. "You shouldn't be here. None of us should." "I'm looking for Tommy." The urgency in her tone sliced through the thick air. Claire gulped, glancing into the depths of the park. "You have to leave. The stories, they're true." "What stories?" Panic surged. "What do you mean?" "Children, they don't come back. They say things are down there. Things that take them. You—"
"Sarah, we can't lose you too!" Fear radiated through her heart, but she barely heard Claire's warning. Each second that ticked by felt like needles digging into her psyche. "I can't leave without him!" She clutched her phone tightly, fingers trembling, ready to dial, but twisting a knot of dread in her stomach. Claire's eyes darted toward the flickering light. "If you hear the whispers, run! Just run! Don't listen!" Then she turned, as if sensing something behind them. The flicker intensified, casting macabre shadows on the ground, and a guttural murmur rose from the depths of the park, a sound that sent shivers through Sarah's skin. "Tommy!" she called again, more frantic this time. The wind shifted violently, snatching at her costume, tugging her back toward the haunted darkness. A whisper wafted through the air, chilling her to her core. "Come play with us forever." In that moment, Sarah felt the ground beneath her tremble, as if the park itself began to shudder and groan. She grabbed Claire's arm, pulling her back. "We have to get out of here!" But Claire's gaze was distant, as if she were caught in a trance. "You can't leave now," she whispered, her voice strangely calm amidst the rising terror. "Claire, snap out of it!" Sarah shouted, shaking her. But the flickering light pulsed again, drawing her greenish eyes toward it. Shadows danced along the edges of her vision, whispers swirling around her, echoing her nightmares. The air thickened as the park transformed into a sinister entity around them. They weren't just spirits of lost children, it was something far worse. "Tommy!" Her voice splintered, a cry of raw panic as she felt a freezing wind blow through her. As darkness swallowed the edges of her sanity, she could only think of one thing: find him. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Sarah yanked Claire away, dragging her toward the ominous glow. Yet, as they approached, the laughter trickled back, twisted and mocking, and something, unseen, lurked just within the shadows. "Leave him alone!" Sarah screamed into the night. But the light flickered once more, and the laughter erupted ominously. As they stumbled forward, the reality of the park morphed, and Sarah realized what she sought might not be found. Instead, the whispers grew louder, wrapping around her mind like a vice. They were not just echoes of the lost. They wanted something from her. With terror biting her heels, she had only moments to choose: confront the darkness or flee into the unknown. And as the desire to find her son clashed with the instinct to escape, an image flickered in her mind, a twisted reflection of Tommy smiling, yet something else lurking behind his eyes. And just as Sarah began to break free from the hold of the malevolent forces, a chilling thought struck her. What if Tommy didn't want to be found? The ground trembled again, and shadows surged around them, closing in. She had to. No, she had to face the truth, but would it be too late? As they neared the source of the light, the whispers sharpened into monstrous laughter. And when she finally reached the epicenter of darkness, confronted by the very heart of Maplewood's curse, it was clear some secrets were meant to stay buried. The ground beneath them rumbled ominously, and Sarah's scream was swallowed by the darkness. As the light flickered one last time, a question echoed in her mind. In a town that had already lost so much, what was one more? Before she could reason through the dread gnawing at her, Sarah sensed the room, if it could be called that, expand and compress with an unholy pulse. Claire's eyes fluttered, glazed over, as if some unseen force had their icy fingers wrapped around her mind. The flickering glow shimmered, casting distorted shapes over their bodies, making them feel like mere shadows of who they once were. "Sarah, we shouldn't be here," Claire whispered weakly, her voice a ghost of the strength it held moments ago. The chilling laughter echoed around them again, mingling with the growing tumult in Sarah's heart. She felt the weight of despair heavy on her chest. Were they already too late? "Listen to me," she said, shaking her neighbor urgently. "We can't let them take you too." But Claire was slipping away, lying somewhere between this world and the next. "I can hear them," she murmured, as if enchanted. "They're so close, so happy." The shadows lurched, and Sarah dragged Claire once more, forcing her to focus. "We need to leave, now." But as she turned, the park twisted, warping into a surreal maze of thick trees and dark corners, trapping them. Panic soared. This place was alive, hungry, and malevolent. "Tommy!" she cried out again, the name tearing itself from her throat, echoing into the looming void. She was skimming the edge of fury and despair, knowing she had little time to act. With a deep breath, she pressed forward, dragging Claire, but they were met with a dense fog creeping in, thick and suffocating. It churned around them, palpable and cold, drenching them in the ominous essence of the park. "Help us," the whispers teased, rising and falling like a tide against her ears. "Won't you join us?" "Stop it," Sarah screamed, her voice cracking. "Leave us alone." But the laughter grew louder, wrapped in a haze of longing and desperation. And in that sickening moment, she felt it, the pull, a sweet temptation that made her heart viciously ache. The need to surrender her own fear, to embrace the darkness. "Sarah, please," Claire murmured, her eyes glassy, reaching up as if to caress an unseen figure. "Don't fight it." "No!" Sarah's voice sliced through the fog, and she wrenched Claire back toward her. "You're not leaving me." In defiance, she darted ahead, the glow intensifying, guiding her forward, like a moth to a deceptive flame. She stumbled into a small clearing, and her breath caught in her throat as her eyes landed on something unspeakable. A circle of children, their hollowed eyes staring vacantly ahead, entranced, their faces marred with a strange glow. It was Tommy, right in the middle, beaming, as if he belonged. "Tommy!" she screamed, heart tearing apart. He turned, that unsettling smile spreading across his face, but behind it lurked an unfamiliar shadow. No longer innocent, he looked like a puppet, strings pulled taut by unseen hands. "Mommy, come play!" "No!" Panic surged in her veins, urging her to break through. She surged forward, breaking the suffocating grip of the whispers, her maternal instinct roaring to save him. But the moment she reached for him, the children surrounded her, a barricade of lost souls.
Their laughter morphed into a haunting choir, swirling around her, knotting her stomach like a vice. "Let him go!" Sarah screamed, though she knew these young, tormented ones didn't have the power to release him. They were mere echoes, puppets just like Tommy. She was wrestling against time and a gathering darkness forged from the town's deepest fears, and she finally realized that escaping might not be an option any longer. From behind the dancing lights, a dark figure emerged, looming over the children, elongating its body into a twisted mockery of humanity. It extended a hand, a beckoning gesture, inviting her to join. And the whispers returned, more compelling than ever. "Embrace the dark. We are eternal." As the figure's gaze locked onto hers, Sarah felt her will begin to fracture, as if the weight of everything she ever feared was rising to suffocate her. Was it too late to escape? Would surrender grant her solace, or would it seal her fate? The ground trembled again, a warning, as shadows began to shift, surrounding her with sinister intent. The laughter and whispers crescendoed into a frantic symphony, a melody too enticing, too heavy to resist. "Tommy," she whispered, teetering on the brink of decision, uncertain of the child's fate, or her own. But the truth danced just out of reach. Freedom came with the grave risk of losing everything. As the chilling laughter grew deafeningly close, Sarah's eyes locked onto Tommy's, desperate for a hint of recognition, of humanity. But all she found was the oppressive darkness behind them. In that fractured moment, a realization hit her hard and fast. To save him, she might have to cross a line from which there would be no return. The darkness pulsed around them. Would she risk everything to break the cycle, or join the darkness for good? And as the shadows closed in, she trembled at the thought that sometimes being lost was the only way to find your way home. The figure loomed closer, its features morphing with each heartbeat. Shadows danced across its elongated face, blurring the line between fear and recognition. Sarah's breath quickened. Each pulse of the earth sent vibrations through her limbs, a reminder that time was slipping away. "Mommy, come play!" The words tumbled from Tommy's lips like shards of glass, splintering her resolve. His smile, once innocent, now twisted into a mask of longing that pierced Sarah's heart. Every instinct screamed for her to pull him away. But the surrounding children tightened their circle, their eyes reflecting nothing but an abyss of sorrow. "Let him go." The words slipped from her mouth, a desperate plea barely flavored with hope. But the children's laughter echoed back, a cruel symphony mocking her anguish. "Don't resist, don't fight." The whisper soared higher, growing more enchanting, wrapping around her like a chilling embrace. Something darkened in the periphery. Sarah glimpsed the figure that had drawn her in, a being of despair, its presence heavy. The air grew thick, suffocating, yet some part of her still yearned for the call of oblivion. The thought of surrendering, blending into the shadows, settled uncomfortably in her mind. She could end the fight, join them. All her fears, doubts, and anxieties would fade away, replaced by blissful ignorance. But then Tommy's eyes flickered. For a brief instant, clarity shone through, a spark of the little boy she knew. His voice broke the enchantment. "Mommy, I'm scared." Her heart surged, pulling her back from the brink. "Tommy," she cried, stretching her hands forward, desperate to bridge the chasm created by darkness. "I'm here. I won't let you go." The dark figure stiffened, a growl rumbling from its depths, and the circle of children wavered, an unstable wall of despair. The whispers turned frantic, a dissonance clamoring within her mind. "Your sacrifice is necessary. Don't you want to be with him?" The figure's voice dripped with malevolence, weaving through her thoughts like poison. Sarah fought to clear her mind, pushing back against the torrent of shadows. It was like trying to swim against a riptide. The tug of Tommy, a pull so inherently maternal, brought on fierce determination. She wouldn't succumb, not now. "Listen to me," Sarah screamed, her voice trembling but strong. "You're not alone. We can break free. You just have to believe." At her words, something shifted. Tommy hesitated, the smile faltering for just a moment, doubt creeping into his youthful features. The other children mirrored this unsettling shift, their collective laughter dropping into an uncertain hush. "Yes," she continued, sensing her moment of reprieve. "You are more than their dame, more than mere shadows. You are real." With every ounce of strength, Sarah lunged forward, breaking the thick mist of fear clouding their minds. She gripped Tommy's hand, feeling the warmth of his small fingers against her own. The air crackled and shifted, a spine-tingling sensation sparking in the space between them. "Run, Tommy, we'll find our way back." With those words, the oppressive grip of shadows loosened. The fog began to thin, swirling away as if recognizing her defiance. But the figure loomed closer, anger radiating from it like sour smoke. "No," it hissed, the malevolence boiling over, clawing for those it lost. Sarah pulled Tommy into a sprint, her heart racing, lungs burning. Yet, the path twisted away and shadowed corners beckoned ominously. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Claire, eerily still, the glimmer of the park whirling around her, an unsettling glow of darkness seeping into her soul. "Claire!" Sarah screamed, but the words were swallowed by the thickening fog. She felt the weight of her friend's absence, the pull of everything she fought against, threatening to tether her. "Mommy, where are we going?" Tommy's voice wavered, glancing back at the children as if weighing the decision to return. Feeling the danger clash in waves around him, Sarah pressed on. "Somewhere safe, I promise." But as they raced deeper, a deep howl echoed through the grove, chilling her to the bone. It reverberated around her, an echo of defeated souls. "Too late, Sarah," the haunting whispers flocked to her ears. "They'll always find you." The ground trembled underfoot, growing slick and uneven, and Sarah braced for the worst as the darkness surged around him again, a monstrous wave about to crash. What lay ahead, even she could not see. But as the shadows vied for victory, she wasn't ready to concede. With every heartbeat thundering in her ears, she pressed forward, determined to protect Tommy at all costs. But the road stretched on, dark and winding, leading her deeper into the heart of that cursed town. Would she find a way out, or would they be lost in shadows forever? The ground heaved beneath their feet as darkness clawed at Sarah's back, hungry and relentless. Every instinct screamed to turn and look, to see how close the figure was, to gauge the threat. But she couldn't. Time blurred, each second taut with despair. "Run!" echoed in her mind, a desperate mantra. Branches snapped like brittle bones overhead, and tangled roots threatened to trip them. Tommy's small feet struggled to keep pace. "Mommy, I'm tired," he gasped, his breath shortening, echoing the dread pooling in her stomach. "Just a little longer." She squeezed his hand, needing him to push forward, to trust her. They dodged a spreading mass of shadow, a slick tendril that reached out, seeking to bind them to despair. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "You can't escape us. You belong with us." "Not today!" she shouted, gathering her resolve. The familiar chime of a street lamp flickered dimly ahead, a beacon in the oppressive gloom. Hope sparked within her, a frail flicker she clutched to her chest as they surged toward the light. But suddenly, a figure dashed across their path. It was another child, pale and glistening, as if made from moonlight, a reflection of the torment around them. "You can't go back," the boy warned, his eyes wide with terror. "You have to stay, or she'll take you." "Who?" Panic surged through her veins. "Who will take us?" "Her," the boy pointed, trembling. "The lost one. She can smell fear. She'll find you." With a swift motion, he darted into the darkness, leaving behind only echoes of fear.
Laughter and despair. Sarah tightened her grip on Tommy and pressed on toward the flickering light. Fear was escalating. Shadows twisted and writhed, trying to pull the little boy back into their fold. "Hold on to me, Tommy. We're almost there." As they approached the lamp, a force surged through the air, heavy and thick. It carried the scent of rot and sorrow. Sarah stumbled, a wave of nausea crashing over her. Ahead, the lamp flickered, a jolt of electricity, until it died, swallowed by the darkness. "Mommy, I don't want to play anymore," Tommy whimpered, eyes wide with terror. The air grew cold, a biting chill creeping into her bones. Panic swelled in her chest. She turned, dread spilling into her veins. "We need to find a way out," she rasped, forcing her feet to move despite the racing heartbeat that echoed in her ears. And then the darkness surged, a pure, suffocating wave. It enveloped them, and Sarah felt herself being pulled apart, the shadows grasping desperately at her. "No!" she cried, the sound ripping from her throat, raw and primal. "Let us go!" A piercing laugh exploded around them, filled with malice and despair. "You think you can leave? You are part of this now." Tommy's grip faltered, the boy's eyes drawing distant. A brief flicker of darkness erupted around him, and the weight of the shadows deepened. Time stretched, twisting her stomach into knots. "No!" She reached out for him, heart in her throat. "Tommy, come back! I won't let you go!" But as she surged toward him, fingers grazing his arm, she felt the turn of his strength fade. The whispering shadows swirled like a tempest. He looked up, eyes dulling, as if the light within him was snuffed out. "Mommy." His voice trailed off, a gossamer thread disappearing into the darkness. Sarah's heart fractured. "Tommy!" In a blind panic, she fought against the tides of shadow, stronger and more insistent, pulling at her resolve. Then something surged from the depths of her strength. "Not today! I won't lose you!" She pushed forward, feeling the tears pooling in her eyes, adrenaline pulsing through her body. Each step felt like wading through molasses, but she had to reach him, had to pull him back from the brink. "Tommy, wake up! Fight!" And as those desperate words broke the surface of despair, the world exploded around them. Shadowy tendrils recoiled, and they both stumbled back into light. But dim anticipation crackled in the air. Was this their salvation, or merely a deeper entrapment? With a breath caught in her chest, Sarah stared into the light. Would it lead to escape, or to a new nightmare waiting in the shadows just beyond sight? The answer loomed just out of reach, as darkness crept silently again, waiting to snatch them back. What awaited them beyond this flickering man-made glow? The light flickered, trembling under the weight of their fear. Sarah stood frozen, clutching Tommy, who looked up at her with wide, lost eyes. The air hummed with a sinister energy, the shadows pulling back but not retreating far. "Where do we go?" she whispered, searching the dark edges around them. The path seemed to stretch indefinitely into the blackness, enveloped by those whispering shadows. "Mommy," Tommy's small voice broke through. "I can't see. I'm scared." "I know, baby, I know." Fear wrapped around her throat, squeezing tight. She needed to act, to move, but dread kept her planted. That same boy's warning echoed in her mind, clawing at any hope she had left. And then, silence. The kind that envelops you, wraps around your soul, squeezing tight. No whispers, no shadows reaching. It was almost peaceful.
but peace felt wrong in this cursed place. "Is it gone?" she asked, half expecting a reply. "Where is she?" Tommy murmured, glancing around as if he could see something she couldn't. The shadows stirred then, swaying again like restless souls. Sarah felt a pull, a creeping sense of urgency. "We need to move, now." They stepped forward, cautiously at first, the crackle of a broken sidewalk crunching under their feet. Each sound echoed loudly, as if announcing their presence to whatever lurked nearby. The oppressive weight of the air pressed down hard, making it hard to breathe. "What's that?" Tommy pointed ahead. A hollow moan rolled through the darkness, rippling out like a wave. "I don't know," she breathed, glancing back, half expecting to see the figure again. Nothing. But fear pulsed in her veins, an instinct that told her something was coming. "Mommy." The way he said her name sent chills down her spine. The tone was off, too quiet, almost too mature for his small voice. She turned to meet his gaze. Those wide, innocent eyes were still there, but something else flickered beneath the surface. For a moment, the darkness seemed to shift. She felt a tug on her heart, a sense of strangeness in her own flesh, an echo of an old fear rising within her. "Tommy, what—" Suddenly his expression changed. His eyes glazed as if a curtain of night had drawn across them. "Mommy," he said again, voice deeper, a whisper that wasn't his own. "You have to come back. Come to us." Panic shot through her. "No, no, you're not him." Sarah grasped his shoulders. His face seemed to warp slightly, shadows flickering across his skin, feeding off the fear bubbling inside her. "Join us," it hissed, the boy's features melting into shadows, as though he was only a marionette to something far more sinister. The darkness chuckled, a cacophony of mocking laughter that echoed like a cruel song. Sarah staggered back, realizing the shadows didn't just consume, they crafted. Pieces from despair fused together, birthing nightmares anew. "Get away from him!" she screamed, shaking him, trying to snap him back from whatever abomination threatened to take him. He flinched, then jerked, as if resuming control. "No, Mommy, please!" He blinked hard, the innocence returning, but the darkness slithered closer.
A figure emerged from the shadows behind him, a fleeting silhouette, shapeless and hungry. It hovered just on the edge of her vision, teasing her with its presence. "I can't hold on!" Tommy cried, thrashed against her grip. Sarah tightened her arms around him. "You can! Fight it, Tommy! You're stronger than this!" The darkness surged forward, ready to swallow them whole. "Run!" The command surged out of her, raw and desperate. As they dove forward, the shadows twisted with rage, and with each step they took deeper into the unknown, Sarah felt a chilling realization sink in, a dark truth clawing through her mind. Some echoes of this darkness remembered her. Would it truly let them go, or was this merely the calm before the storm? And as they fled, wings of shadow flapped behind them, waiting for the moment to strike. They pushed forward, heartbeats matching the rhythm of their hurried steps. The world around them darkened, the oppressive weight of the shadows suffocating, as if the air itself conspired against their escape. Sarah fought to keep panic at bay while clinging to Tommy, desperate not to lose her grip. Each crunch of the pavement underfoot felt like a desperate plea for survival, resonating in the suffocating silence. "Mommy, is it behind us?" Tommy's voice trembled, a tiny thread of sound in the awe-consuming dark. Sarah dared not look. "Keep moving." She grabbed his hand tighter, her determination solidifying into an iron resolve. Her mother's instincts ignited within her, protect at all costs. But doubt gnawed at her. What if this was it? The end? The shadows that swayed and curled like smoke whispered of dread, taunting her with a darkness she couldn't comprehend. Ahead, an alleyway yawned open, almost invitingly, dimly lit by a flickering bulb, flickering stubbornly against the darkness. It felt like a flash of hope amidst despair. Without thinking, she steered Tommy toward it. The closer they got, the more the shadows pulsed with anger, reaching towards them as if yearning to snatch them back into the depths. The alley felt claustrophobic. Walls adorned with peeling paint loomed high, blocking out the sky. "Stay close," she whispered, her breath hitching as they pressed further into the narrow space. The dampness made her skin prickle, each step echoing ominously. "What if it finds us here?" Tommy said, a quiver in his voice. "We'll be safe." Her own words felt hollow, like a fragile glass that could shatter at any moment. She could almost hear the mocking laughter drawing nearer. Shadows pooled at her feet, lingering, darting back, as if waiting for just the right moment to strike. They reached the far end of the alley, where a door stood slightly ajar. The faintest glimmer of light spilled into the darkness, beckoning them. Heart racing, she reached for the handle and pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, a groan that echoed deep into the emptiness. Inside looked like a storage room, boxes strewn everywhere, dust particles dancing in the...
"Hi, Tommy!" She ushered him behind a stack of old crates, her eyes scanning the cramped room, searching for dangers lurking in the corners. Every nerve screamed at her to leave, to run, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. A scratching sound echoed outside, a whisper of nails against wood, clinging to something much darker. Sarah held her breath, the sound growing louder. The shadows pooled more eagerly around the door, creeping closer to the threshold. Suddenly, the door swung wide, slamming against the wall with a thunderous crash. Sarah gasped, clawing for the courage to stay still. "Why do you hide?" A voice slithered through the doorway, dark, insidious. It was familiar and alien all at once. "We only want to play." The figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, a horror neither entirely human nor beast, with features dancing in and out of visibility. It grinned, a toothy, grotesque smile spilling despair. Tommy let out a whimper, the innocence fading as he clutched Sarah's hand tighter. "We have room for all of you," it crooned, eyes glinting with malicious excitement as it stepped forward. "Don't move." Sarah's voice broke, strong yet fraying at the edges. The shadows thickened, writhing like snakes, hungry for the warmth of their fear. But where was the escape? The walls felt like they were collapsing in, pressing her down. In that moment, beneath the thickening darkness, a flicker of defiance ignited within her. "Tommy, can you hear me?" she urged, shaking him gently. "You have to help me. Find something, anything." His eyes widened, the flickering faint light catching the remnants of his innocence. I see it." "Get it." She could feel time slipping, the shadows tightening around them. The figure laughed, a sound that echoed in her bones, each giggle slicing through the air. With renewed desperation, Sarah shouted, "Come on, Tommy, think of something bright." As the night pressed down on them, was there really a way to outshine the darkness? And then a glimmer of hope flickered in Tommy's eyes, and amidst the terror, a chilling thought clawed at Sarah's mind. Is light truly enough to fight shadows? Or was their fate already sealed in darkness? Tommy's eyes darted around the cluttered room, filled with nothing but darkness and shadows. Sarah's heart raced as every second ticked like a time bomb. The figure in the doorway leaned closer, and she noticed the glimmer of sharp teeth bared in a sickening smile. "Tommy, think." She felt her voice crack. We need something, a light, anything." Tommy nodded, fear battling with resolve. Then he squeezed his little hand into a fist like a tiny warrior preparing for battle. "There's a flashlight, Mommy." His voice trembled, but desperation fueled confidence. "Where?" "Over there." He pointed frantically toward a box half hidden by shadows. Shimmering dust particles danced in the beam of light, almost mocking them with the potential for safety. "Get it!"
Hurry! Sarah choked on the urgency as the figure's laughter echoed around her, pooling dread like an oil slick. She stepped in front of Tommy, instinctively shielding him. With shaking hands, Tommy scurried toward the box. Each step he took seemed to provoke the lurking shadows, which quivered with anticipation. Sarah could sense their hunger, a palpable force wrapping around her in layers so thick they almost suffocated. The figure stepped further into the room, and Sarah felt the heat of its presence, a dark aura that chilled her to the bone. She clenched her jaw, every muscle tense to spring, but she remained rooted as Tommy knelt in that half-light, rummaging through the chaos. "Come on, Tommy, come on." Panic flared in her chest. The flashlight felt like hope, a fragile candle fighting against the tempest. The shadows laughed their chittering chorus, licking hungrily at Sarah's heels as if savoring her fear. Then, suddenly, there it was, a small, dusty flashlight adorned with faded cartoon characters. Tommy yanked it free, cradling it like a precious gem. But when he pressed the switch, nothing happened. No, no! The corners of her vision darkened, and despair crept over her like creeping vines. "Mommy, I can't make it work," Tommy cried, trembling now. "Try again. Shake it, please." The figure stepped closer, its eyes glinting with a manic glee. Time stretched like an elastic band, pulling her closer to the breaking point as she grasped Tommy's shoulders, hoping to breathe strength into him. "You can do it, buddy. We need to shine bright." A moment of silence wrapped around them, broken only by Tommy's heavy breaths. Sarah's heart felt like it was hammering against her ribs, and in that stillness she could hear the faintest growl emerging from the shadows. "Why resist?" the figure whispered, its voice curling around them like smoke. "Let the darkness embrace you. It won't hurt." "Get away from us," Sarah shouted, standing firm despite the overwhelming terror clawing at her mind. "We won't let you take us." Just as despair threatened to swallow Sarah whole, Tommy took a deep breath and shook the flashlight again. Mechanically, light burst forth, bursting to life with a bright glow. Its beam sliced through the room, illuminating the walls covered in grotesque murals that twisted like the figure itself. Behind it, exaggerated shapes writhed, whispering secrets trapped in the shadows. "Look, Mommy," Tommy gasped, eyes wide. But the joy of the moment vanished as the light cast an eerie glow on the figure, revealing its true form. Distorted, skinned, and hauntingly familiar. It had the face of a child, twisted and contorted in eternal agony. "Shine it at me," the figure hissed, eyes narrowing, "and see what happens." Sarah's stomach dropped, horror flooding her veins. What was this thing? "No," she yelled frantically. "We can't trust it." But the shadows shrieked and pulled back, almost retreating from the light's touch, leaving Sarah desperate for a way out, suddenly aware that the flashlight
might not be a savior. "Keep it steady," she urged. "We can't let it get close." The figure lunged forward, and instinct kicked in. Tommy's hand tightened on the flashlight. He swung it toward the creature, and with each push of light, the figure shrieked, the sound vibrating through the air, sending chills down her spine. The beam ignited the shadows, but for how long? "Hold it, Tommy!" Darkness clawed at the edges of their light. Would it hold? As their world danced with blinding brightness and encroaching death, Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of escape. She had to keep them safe. But a chilling realization struck her. Was the light really strong enough to battle the dark that hungered for them? The laughter faded, replaced by a low, echoing growl. In that relentless terror, one thought haunted her. If they could not fight the shadows, what price would they pay to keep the light? And at that moment, beneath the colorful clutches of their only hope, something sinister began to shift in the darkness behind them. The shadows rippled, twisting like liquid night, and Sarah felt a pulse of dread in the air. The lantern's light shimmered, struggling against the encroaching darkness. Tommy's small hands shook, sweat glistening on his brow as he held the flashlight, the sole barrier between them and the grotesque figure. "Keep aiming it! Don't look away!" Sarah breathed, her voice barely above a whisper, fear staining every word. The figure shrieked, its voice slicing through the air like glass, sharp and painful. "Why fight?" it crooned, the words wrapping around her like a serpent, tightening. "Join me in the shadows. You can become something more, something beautiful." Sarah shook her head violently, her heart thudding in her chest. "You're lying. You're not real." But doubt, spoon-fed by its alluring tone, began to seep through her defenses. The darkness felt alive, and she knew it was feeding off every hint of her fear. "Mommy!" Tommy cried, tears streaming down his cheeks. The beam flickered as he trembled, caught in the throes of terror. Was he strong enough to hold it together? "Just hold on," Sarah urged, the smile of the creature twisting further into a grimace as the light flickered again, struggling against the growing shadows, each crackle sounding like a warning bell. As if it sensed their uncertainty, the figure lunged again, a swift motion that seemed to blur the line between flesh and shadow. Its features twisted grotesquely, a mask of despair and rage, and for a split second, Sarah glimpsed a multitude of eyes flickering within the dark, a constellation of torment. "Shine it brighter!" she screamed, desperate. "Please, Tommy!" With a sudden burst of determination, Tommy took a breath, clenched his little teeth, and shook the flashlight again. The beam surged, flooding the room with a brightness that momentarily stilled the darkness. As it did, the walls throbbed, grotesque images shifting and undulating as if in agony. Faces twisted in pain flashed by.
Gasped. She knew those faces, children who had gone missing, who had been consumed by the shadows. "What's happening?" Tommy whimpered, gripping the flashlight tighter, his small frame taut with fear. "It's showing us something." But the momentary brightness fed their fear. The shadows howled in response, crashing against the light with a force that nearly knocked them off their feet. The very air grew thick, a weight pressing down on them, suffocating in its intensity. "Mommy, I can't hold it!" Tommy's small voice quivered, and in a split second of horror, the light flickered once more. With each flicker, shadows danced closer, clawing at the edges of their sanctuary, howling with desperation. "No! Hold on, Tommy! Just a bit longer!" Just as despair began to wrap around her heart like a vice grip, the flashlight flickered violently, and then darkness rushed in, swallowing the light like a starving beast. With a raw scream, Sarah lunged forward, driving her body against the walls of their glowing prison. "Tommy, we have to find another way out!" Then, with a final, eerie silence, the light died, plunging them into an abyss of darkness where the familiar sounds of the world fell away, replaced by chilling whispers and the soft brush of cold fingers against their skin. Sarah's breath hitched. "Tommy." But then, as if responding to her fear, a new glimmer appeared. But it wasn't from the flashlight. Instead, a faint glow emanated from a corner of the room, pulsing and beckoning from behind the swirling shadows. It was a door, ajar and vibrant, halos of light spilling around the edges. "Look, Mommy," Tommy whispered, his voice shaky but hopeful. "Tommy, we may not have a choice," Sarah said, uncertainty lacing her words. "That could lead us to safety, or to something worse." As the shadows pooled closer, thrumming with rage, Sarah had to decide. Would they step into the light or venture deeper into the darkness, leaving everything they knew behind? In that moment, the whispers rose to a deafening crescendo, and the darkness shifted, hinting at horrors yet to unfold. What lay behind that door might not be a sanctuary, but a deeper level of nightmare. The choice had to be made now. Would they be brave enough to pull the handle, or was fate pulling them in another direction? In that heart-stopping moment, Sarah felt the world tilt. The shadows coiled around them in vicious anticipation, a living embodiment of fear. They pressed tighter, crawling toward her like a pack of hungry wolves, eager to claim their next prey. But Tommy's small hand clutched hers, a fragile thread of courage amidst the tumult. "Mommy, I'm scared," he whispered, looking up at her, eyes shimmering with uncertainty. "Me too, buddy," she breathed, frantically scanning the room. Every pulse of her heart screamed urgency. "But we can't stay here. We have to try the door." The faint glow next to that scintillating light pulled at her fear and hope alike. She swallowed hard, fighting against a wave of dread as she glanced to the shadows creeping closer. With a steadying breath, Sarah tightened her grip on Tommy's hand and said, "Whatever happens, don't let go." They stumbled toward the glowing door, each step a conscious battle against the murmurs of despair tugging at their minds. The whispers curled around her thoughts, attempting to snuff out her resolve. "Join us," they begged, sweet yet sinister, a reminder of the darkness she battled. "Open it," Tommy urged, barely holding on. She reached for the handle, feeling its coldness under her palm like a warning. With a deep breath, she twisted it, the door swinging open with a low creak that sliced through the silence. What lay beyond was brilliance tinged with warmth, an impossible brightness that contrasted sharply with the surrounding shadows. "Go," Sarah commanded, the light spilling over them, illuminating their path like a beacon of hope. They charged forward, stepping into the brilliance, leaving the haunting cries of the darkness behind. The moment they broke through, it felt like stepping out of a nightmare and into daylight. They emerged into an open field, vibrant under a sun that seemed to chase away the remnants of fear. Color returned to the world. The sweet, earthy smell of leaves and grass filled her senses, almost intoxicating. It was a stark contrast to the looming threat they had just escaped. "Did we make it?" Tommy looked around, bewildered, his small face pale but filled with wonder. "I think so," Sarah exclaimed, wild joy flooding her chest. They had escaped the very heart of Maplewood's curse. But then, as she surveyed the enchanted landscape, she noticed familiar figures moving among the bright trees, children no longer trapped in the shadows but running free. They laughed and played, returning to innocence. Among them was Claire, her eyes bright and alive, lifting her hands toward the sun as if it were a lost friend. "Claire!" Sarah gasped, running toward her with renewed energy. Tommy quickly followed, wild-eyed but hopeful. In this new realm, fear felt distant. Sarah reached Claire, embracing her fiercely. "Are you okay? We thought we lost you." "I'm fine now," Claire said, relief flooding her voice. I was lost, but found my way back too, somehow. The darkness can't hurt us here, not anymore." As other children gathered, laughter mingled with the gentle winds, echoing off the trees. An overwhelming sense of comfort cocooned Sarah, breaking the chains of fear she had carried for too long. "Where are we?" Tommy asked, wide-eyed with wonder. "Somewhere safe," Claire smiled brightly, placing a hand on Tommy's shoulder. "You should always trust the light, even when it seems hardest to find." Sarah paused, a knot of realization loosening in her heart. A lesson learned. She couldn't let fear dictate her choices. Suddenly, a low growl rolled through the landscape, ricocheting off the trees like a distant echo. It was far, but its presence was a reminder that terror didn't just disappear. Even here. "We have to be vigilant," Claire warned as they shared a knowing glance, recognizing the darkness as an ever-watchful eye. "Yes," Sarah nodded, drawing in a breath, her heart steady. "But we will face it together, as we always should."
As the children around them frolicked, their laughter filling the air, Sarah turned to Tommy, who was brimming with excitement and gratitude. "Look, Mom, there's a playground." "Yes," she knelt beside him. "But remember, joy comes with light, and light comes from us." Tommy nodded earnestly. The brilliance in his eyes reflected the warmth of the sun. The threat of darkness faded as they walked forward, step by step, forging a path of resilience and light that transcended fear. In that moment, Sarah knew Maplewood would remain a part of her, a scar, yet a reminder of strength. But they wouldn't live in its shadow. They would thrive, together, illuminating each other's paths forward. And as shadows danced on the edges of that brilliant day, they had stepped into a future bright with possibility, a future born from defiance against despair. Now you need to take action. Subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that await you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling ending. I want to hear from you. And of course, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel with these actions.